such a varied background story. Um, Man, talk me through how you got into, because I know there was some trouble early on, and I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I want to talk about your transition into the fitness world because you are a head coach at your own facility. You're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner, but it wasn't always that way, was it?
No, it wasn't, man. And I've been in the fitness world for 7 years. A lot of people look at me and think I've done it my whole life. I was an athlete growing up. But when I got to college, I stopped working out, wasn't playing sports anymore, none of that. And, I was in college from '07 to about 2011 before I actually ended up dropping out and pursuing music, which is where I was before fitness. I was in the music business. I was touring. I was throwing shows, dropping a lot of albums. I had my own little group with at one point we had 5 total, including myself. Then, those that were putting in the elbow grease were the ones that stayed. And by the time that I stopped doing that aspect of music, there's 3 of us, including myself. Because when we were getting married, my wife and I've been with my wife for 14 years.
Hmm.
And when we were getting married back in 2014, and then we got engaged, the one thing that we wanted to do by the time our wedding came around, because we were doing the quick turnaround, so we got engaged in February of 14, got married in August of 14. So did a quick 6-month turnaround on that because we had been together and lived together already by that point for a good while. So
Yeah.
we didn't see the need to wait for a long time. But when we got engaged, the one thing we wanted to do was be healthy as possible, be in shape, because in the music world, I got so engulfed in a lot of the gimmick aspect of being a rapper. So a lot of the drugs, a lot of the lifestyle. And I was standing 6 foot at 150 pounds when my wife and I got engaged.
Uh-huh.
And it literally one day I got out of the shower and looked at myself and I was like, dog, you look like a fucking crackhead, man. I wasn't doing crack, but
Right.
that's how I fucking looked. I was skinny, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Skinny at 6'1". And so we started going to the gym together, and I gained about 15 pounds within like the first month because like I hit it hard, didn't look back. Protein, was working out 6 days a week. I was eating right, so I gained weight very fast because I was so small. So I had that weight to be able to gain.
Right.
And a guy named Jonathan, that was the fitness manager at the gym that I was working out at, which is called Texas Family Fitness, saw that I gained that weight really quickly. And he started trying to like recruit me to be a trainer. And initially I was like, no, I don't want to. That's not what I'm looking to do. I'm doing this music stuff. I just got into wrestling as well at that time. And then he just like kept on for like 2 months straight. So finally I ended up getting my training certification and started working at Texas Family Fitness. And I worked there. At one point, I went to LA Fitness as the fitness director. From there, I went to Fitness Connection. And I had a really good time at Fitness Connection, was one of the top trainers in Texas, actually, as far as like the amount of sessions that I was burning per month. I think at the
Hmm.
highest I got was like the #2 ranked trainer in Texas for UBF Ultra Body Fitness in Texas with burning those sessions. And then that's where I ended up suffering my injury at. I was
Okay.
training a client. We're doing some basketball drills. He was a younger client of mine. And we're doing like some dunk drills. I was showing them different ways to do different stuff. And I just awkwardly came down on my foot. I didn't even come down awkward, actually. I landed normal. But being that I'm flat footed, just the pressure of the impact from when I landed from whatever I did shocked all my nerves to where they gave out in my foot. And my subtalar joint just snapped right
Oh,
there at the
damn.
bottom. Yeah, and dislocated my foot. And so then I was out a couple months. Had to give all my clients away. Granted, no guarantee that they would come back afterwards, except those that just loved me enough to want
Right.
to come
Right.
back. But 2 months is a lot of time to be out where they're building rapport with another person. You know what I mean? So I never faulted those that didn't want to come back. I got it, you know what I mean? Because they were taken care of while I was out. Some did come back to me out of loyalty, and I had to kind of regrind. But during that time, I got real depressed, not being able to wrestle, obviously during that time because I was already wrestling when
Hmm.
this had happened. Had multiple titles already at the time that this had happened, because this is now in 2016 when I'm working for UBF. I had to give titles away, couldn't wrestle, couldn't work. So and all my identity at that time, I felt was wrapped up in what I did, and my value was in what I did, not who the fuck I was and what I was about at the core. But that was before me learning that. And so I got real depressed, man. And, I used to be addicted to a lot of different drugs. I was addicted to pills and all that kind of stuff. And of course, like I spoke on stage, the first thing that doctors do when you have an injury is give you a bottle of pills and don't make anything up. And initially, I wasn't taking the pills when I first got hurt, but the more depressed that I got, I wanted to cope with those feelings one way and just hide the fact that I was depressed. So I started taking the pills to be high. And then the cycle began again until the point where, I just felt invaluable because I couldn't provide for my family like I wanted to, couldn't work for the promotions that, I had the titles with that I had to give away. And so I got real depressed and started getting real suicidal to one day I did want to commit suicide and was going to. And, I just before I did anything, I had just prayed. And in that moment of prayer, I just felt the hand of God touch me ultimately. And, didn't do it, obviously. Got back to church after I sent that prayer out and felt what I felt in that moment. Also got aligned with different people from going back to church, which the gym that I subleased from, the owner goes to my church as well. And that's where I met him at and how I was able to start subleasing from here to run my business. And that's what helped me start because I got here at this gym after all that had happened. Met the owner, great guy, Eric Rona. Mark Zalmanoff was subleasing from here at that time as well. And he kind of underwinged me before I fully jumped into business for myself and kind of showed me the ropes on kind of how to start your own private training business. And then one day leading in, I'm 33 now. This was about right before my 30th birthday when Mark was like, dude, this is something you're either going to do or you're not going to do. You know what I mean? And you're young enough making this decision where if you're going to do it, now's the time you should do it because you'll have a head start compared to a lot of people on starting this. You know what I mean? And so I made the jump. Yeah. And so I made the jump to start Primetime Fitness and, create my private fitness training business. I got online clients. And it was, as anything, it's always a hard, working for yourself, period, in any aspect is difficult. You know what I mean? But I had the people around me to where I knew I wouldn't fail. My mindset had grown to where I knew I wouldn't fail at anything. And so through those first 6 to 8 months, that first year of really building it and try to build up that clientele, it was rough. But I was in a whole different mode here in my mind than I was, previous getting saved, 6 months, 8 months before that. Once again, just due to me learning more about myself, I became a reader. I never read books before. I started reading after all that, the suicidal thoughts and stuff happened, after I got saved. And now the rest is history, man. Now, 3.5 years into it, because it was in May of 2018 when I started Primetime Fitness. So we're at, going on 4 years here in about 6 months that I've had my own business. And it's been a complete blessing, you know what I mean? And it's grown so much with obviously indulging in Apex and doing podcasts and becoming a speaker and kind of making myself authority in all these different fields, from fitness to wrestling to music to can you still see? There we go. To music. And like I say, the speaking and doing the podcast and everything. And now I'm helping people overcome certain aspects of their mindset of stuff that's holding them back with, wanting to work with me privately, not for business sake, but really it's a lot of mindset stuff, which that goes into you honing in on your fitness, which goes into you honing in on your family dynamics, honing in on you as a person, which all correlate to how you'll be able to run your business well. So I don't necessarily teach business tactics. I teach everything that comes before that to make that even better for when you go into that and have people that you're working with. That way you can either take it and work with them on it or bring me in to talk to them as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. So for my guy that's listening that might be starting out in the personal training space, Tell me about that first 6 months of when you jumped off the cliff and hoped your airplane flew. Tell me about that first
Right.
6 months and how you managed to bring enough business in the door to get enough traction to establish your name. Because I know that it's that first 6 months that's absolutely critical in building
Correct.
that foundation. So, what were some of the things that you did to get through that?
The biggest thing was social media and word of mouth. Initially, I had some clients that jumped ship with me when I started my business from the gym that I was at before.
Hmm.
That came with me, so I was able to start off with maybe like 4 people
Okay.
initially when I made the jump, and at that point, it was them telling their friends, and I was like, I asked for a post a week. I was like, post a week about me, how much you're loving it, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Um, then making myself authority online, posting videos of the clients, giving out, workout Wednesdays and posting the workout that I have my clients do every Wednesdays where people will see that and do it. And then, realize that, hey, I kind of like this kind of working out because, it's CrossFit functional fitness based of what I do. So it's high intensity stuff. We do a lot of heavy weights. We do a little bit of everything is what
Uh-huh.
it is. And, just formulating that business right. You have to set hours to the only hours that you want to work because your family still has to have time. And then with that, it's like, okay, if you're only going to work this amount of hours, how much money do you want to make? Because now you have to correlate your prices to the hours you want to work for the the minimum you want to make a month that you're okay with, and then building it from there. Those were the main keys, and also steadily investing myself in coaching. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing the masterminds, learning new tactics, asking questions to those around me that have already done what I wanted to do for years before that I was doing it, and not being ashamed to ask questions and being vulnerable enough to be able to feel comfortable to ask anybody that was in my position from years before me exactly how they did it as well. And just let that add up over time and not giving up. You know what I mean? I stayed believing in myself more than anybody else could believe in me to keep me from wanting to give up when times got hard or anything like that. And that was the main key, is that belief in myself, to apply that work with that belief.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it's a compelling story. One thing you touched on was your pricing, and I notice in a lot of industries, people don't value their time as much as maybe they should. Do you find that's a big problem in the personal training space with guys just starting out?
I do, which is why I think a lot of people, I tell people that are like getting into training all the time, if they're like, yeah, I think I'm about to go apply to LA Fitness or Texas Family or any of that, I'm like, don't do that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, if you have people that want to start already, that like, if you have at least 3 or 4 people that want to start with you already, work for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the best decision that you ever made. I waited 3.5, 4 years to lead me to working for myself because I felt like it was time wasted by the time I did. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
had all them tools already leading into it. So I do think a lot of people starting off struggle valuing what their time is and their expertise. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Because we're out there to solve problems for people.
Yeah.
And if you know how to do that, your time is valuable because that's ultimately what they're paying for. People could get workouts online. They're
Mm-hmm.
paying for your time to help you expedite so they can take the thinking out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you have to correlate them too. But a lot of people don't know that if they're not around people to be able to tell them, because it's one of them situations where if you don't know, you don't know. But also at the same time, if you're not searching for it and know you could be searching for it to find out more information, then that's on you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get on social media and see that there's a lot of social media trainers and people are, I
Yeah.
don't want to say social media trainers, but there really is, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
People that have honestly never done any tests or anything like that, to where they worked out themselves and then just when applied that to social media, people start hitting them up
Yeah.
about wanting to work out with them, and then they can start selling. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because
Yeah.
that's all you're selling is your time. Everything else just comes with that.
Yeah.
While we go over and above for our clients, because we know we value our time. We want them to value our time. So to show them how much we love them and appreciate them valuing our time and what we charge or whatever it may be, we go over and above in everything that we do. That way they know that it's like, man, they already did what they needed to do when I was with them for those 3 hours out of that week. And they're still giving me this extra stuff and still applying this extra knowledge with what they post on social media, or by letting me talk to them if I have a question, because I'm about to go on vacation and I want workouts to take out there with me, and so on and so forth.
So I want to touch now a little bit on the book writing process. Let's fast forward now, because you just became a best-selling author. Tell me a bit about the journey of writing a book. What inspired you to do it, and what the future holds for you?
I think the one thing that inspired me to write it was realizing that a lot of people could benefit from it. Because I was already doing a lot of podcasts leading up to it. I, went and spoke at a couple different meetings that, Ryan Stewman had held. And I actually went and spoke at schools and stuff before, because they wanted me to tell my story to kids that were from the inner city as well. So with that, at that point, I realized I had the authority to be able to write a book, and allowed myself that. And one day I was in Drewby's office talking to him, and, we were just talking about each other's stories, and I was getting ready to fly out of town. I had stopped and done a podcast with somebody earlier that day, and just wanted to say hello. Then he asked me, he was like, when are you gonna write your book, dude? He was like, if I can write a book, you definitely can. You know what I mean? Your background and what you have been through and what you're doing is so exponentially different from what I wrote mine about. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so literally 2 days later, I started writing it. And it started with the outline. And then, I went through the process of, I started actually typing it, and then I went to like vocal record it and have it transcribed and went that route with it, because I was like, this writing shit takes forever, dude.
I know, dude. You start tapping it out on your phone.
And that kind of process. But it was realizing that I had authority to write a book, because I think that's why a lot of people don't write books, is because they don't feel that anybody wants to hear their story. But I'll be damned if there's not one thing that every single person in this world can relate to from one person to the next. I genuinely feel that everybody, there is something about their life one way or another, even if it's one thing that we can relate to with all these different individuals. So with that, everybody has a story, and it was just kind of realizing that I needed to be vulnerable in that situation if I genuinely wanted to touch and help as many people and inspire as many people and motivate as many people as I genuinely was saying I wanted to. The book had to be written, because that's one of the easiest ways to get it out. So we got the first one out the way, and now it's time to get really good at it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are getting a lot of stuff from it. I have my 13th Floor Mindset podcast, and so I'm already working on the next book, which is going to be, the 13 principles from the 13th floor.
Right.
And so, which is going to be completely different from Unfuckwittable, because Unfuckwittable was my journey to get to where I'm at from start to finish. Now, not start to finish, but start to continuation, because it just ended with where I'm at now. For people to get a story and then a lesson, a story and then a lesson, a story, then a lesson. Where the 13 principles from the 13th floor are going to be the big 13 principles, core values that have shaped my life, changed my life, a little bit of the story aspect, but really focusing in on this is the journey I took, and this is exactly what I did to be able to get to this mindset of this principle in which I'm talking about.
I think it's because you got the mind of a champion.
That's it.
You
keep fighting, man.
How long, dude, have you been involved in professional wrestling now?
7.5 years.
Tell me what was going through your mind 8 years ago when you walked into a wrestling gym. How in the world do you become a professional wrestler, man? I must know this story.
Initially, it was kind of by luck. Now there's a lot more wrestling schools around where people can easily get on Google, search wrestling schools in the area, and find one school or another. We have, I can name 4 or 5 that are around this general area alone that I'm in now.
Oh, wow.
Back when I was starting, I found nothing when I Googled it. I started off as a wrestling podcaster. And then one day, one of my good buddies, Ty Wilson, and I went and did photography and videography for a promotion called MPX. And then we went out with him afterwards, after we did all the interview stuff, the show was over. You know, we talked to some people, went out to drink with him afterwards. And when we were there's this chick named Ruthless Lala that came and sat down with us and kind of gave us a 411. She was like, man, y'all have great looks. Y'all got the personality for it. Y'all, you know, if this is something y'all want to do, here's this guy's number that I would suggest you work with to train y'all. And she gave us the number to a guy named Anthony Black, who ended up being our trainer. You know, she gave us a name number. I added him on Facebook that same night. He was like, all right,
you'd never wrestled before?
No, I was a basketball player back
so
in
you
my
went
day.
out, what you're telling me is you went out drinking with your buddies, a pretty girl gave you a phone number to call, and drunk Dontae decided it'd be a good idea to become a wrestler.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it.
And now I've been on TV and have held 13, 14 different titles and shit.
It's crazy. Talk just happenstance. You're like, you know what? I think I can do this.
Yeah, it's like, let's try it. If it doesn't work, cool.
That's like the
if
best.
It doesn't work, cool. Let's try it. But we hit the ground running, man. But also we put in the effort. We were there.
Oh yeah.
We were driving an hour and a half, 2 hours every day to go to train. And rain, hail, sleet, snow. We were out there 6-7 days a week for months to a year on end, like clockwork, putting the work in to really learn the trade. Once we had that realization, was like, yo, this is something that we could really be good at in a few years if we really focus in and want to be good at it and give it everything we have.
Because it is an entire trade. It is an entire trade, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the entertainment side of that business and how it feels to be up on stage in front of so many people.
It's exhilarating, man. And it was funny, you know, I've performed on big stages in music before wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know, I've South by Southwest for years on end, performed at one of the biggest trees out here. I mean, one of the biggest venues, named Trees venue out here in Dallas, opening up for some of the biggest artists today and yesterday, obviously, from when I was doing that. But it's all different, like all these different stages. I've been on a CrossFit platform, working out, competing at Wadapalooza, which is one of the biggest CrossFit competitions in the world out in Miami, mm-hmm. with, you know, 500 people in the stands. But all these, from the CrossFit to speaking on stage at something like Apex Live in front of 400 people, to wrestling in the ring, to being on the music stage, all of them have this different exhilarating aspect to them. All of them are performances in a way at the end of the day, because you're in front of people entertaining and talking and doing this or working for them one way or another, but all of them are so different. And when it comes to wrestling, where wrestling is really cool in the entertainment aspect is how we're able to control the emotions of everybody in that audience, be it they boo us, be it they cheer us, be it they start booing us initially at the start of the show and at the end start cheering us, or whether they cheering us at the beginning and end up booing us, where we can flip that switch on them based off of what we do and how we react in the ring. It's
serious entertainment, isn't it? Isn't there stories woven through it and good guys and bad guys? Is that how that works?
Yeah, there's all that aspect to it. And people want good wrestling. You got to be a good, genuine wrestler as well, you know? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, if you're a good wrestler, but you don't have any charisma, you're only going to get so far, mm-hmm. you know, or if you have charisma and you're not a good wrestler, you're only going to get so far. You got to have that charisma and be a good wrestler to get everything out of this business that you absolutely want to. And a lot of people think they have both aspects and they don't. And it shows in what you achieve. You know what I mean? If you're just small town working your whole career, mm-hmm. You may be good for the small town, but in the grand scheme of things, you're probably not as good as you really think you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you weren't able to get out of that hole. But once you start getting at that hole, that tells you that you're good enough. Once you start winning 13 titles and being on TV, that shows you're good enough. Once you start facing guys that were either in big promotions or used to be in big promotions, and they start, you know, bestowing you with some of their moves because they feel that you will be good at it and appreciated you enough and respect you enough, where it's like, hey, I want to give you this move because I think you'll look good. I don't use it anymore, but I want you to start using it if you would, because I think it'll be a great thing for you. You got to take that shit and run with it, because those opportunities don't come around often. There's a guy named Austin Aries that I faced back in June, if I'm not mistaken. And Austin Aries wrestled at WrestleMania a couple times. He's a former Impact World Champion, held multiple titles in Impact, actually, multiple major titles everywhere else. He's literally one of the top wrestlers to ever grace the professional wrestling business. And when I was wrestling him, there's a move called a brain buster that was his finishing move for the longest time. But it was one of them things where he wanted me to do it on him and me to continue using it, because he just felt it would look good with me, with the strength that I have in the body. He was like, I know this move would look good. He was like, so I want you to not only to use it on me, being the guy that's over here, he was like, but I want you to continue using it, because I have that respect for you and realize that there's no separation in anything that I've done to where you're at right here wrestling me, other than opportunity. And that's kind of what it gets to, is some things as far as what separates us where we're at on the independent circuit to those that are on TV on a weekly basis with the 300, 500,000, $1 million contracts is all opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk just a little bit more about wrestling. What would you say? Yeah. What would you say one of the more important lessons that wrestling has taught you that you can share with the audience that would apply to the rest of their lives?
Oh, I think one of the biggest lessons is the fact that you can work as hard as you want to at something and genuinely be giving it your all, right? Giving everything you can, doing the work as we know it, investing in yourself, everything. And it still may not happen. And you have to be okay with knowing that and still put in the work for it to happen, for as long as you're doing the journey, because that's how life is. You know, we might work hard at this. We might work hard to become a millionaire, whatever it may be. There's a lot of things that we can do in life. But at the end of the day, we can be giving our all, and it still may not get all the way there. So at that point, you have to really realize, like, what is the purpose in which you are doing it? Like, when you know your purpose and the ultimate goal, right, the root goal of what it is that you're doing and the why behind what you're doing, then at the end of the day, if for whatever reason it doesn't happen after you've given everything you genuinely could to try to make it happen, and it doesn't, you're able to live with yourself and you don't have those what if factors when you call it, when you call the quits, or, go on to your next, whatever it may be. Because some things are just a rite of passage to get us to a position in which we don't realize in that moment. Sometimes we take this certain journey for a long time, literally to get us to something else down the line that we don't see at that time. And long as we're giving our all, we'll give ourselves our opportunity to at least get there when we know our purpose, know our why, have done the work, we call it. And then it's like, oh, well, this opportunity came up after I finished, and I never saw that this could come from everything that I've done back then. You know what I mean? And it's even greater when it does.
It's cumulative. The shit stacks up.
Right. Exactly. So much, right?
Dude. Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm having a lot of fun, Dontae. Thank you for taking time out of your day, man. This is,
of course, man. I love this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Man. I don't know whether to go down this metaverse rabbit hole, and I kind of want to know what's next for Dontae Smiley and what's coming up in the future, but I kind of want to touch on the world itself, because with Ryan's talk last week and with Facebook announcing Meta and the launch of the metaverse, and with NFTs coming up and starting to be popular and all these alternate sources of making money, dude, what does the future look like to you?
Man,
that's why I was laughing. I'm like, do I really want to go here? But
yeah, I mean, no, it's cool. Like, I love talking about this kind of stuff though too, man. Because it's all going to inevitably be part of the journey. Just like Ryan did say, it's going to happen.
It's coming. What I mean?
Like, I've been to like 3 different places this week already where they're like, nope, we don't take cash anymore. We're only going to be taking card from here on out. And there was a
Man,
time that we never thought that was going to happen. We're like,
like
it's always going to take cash. But no, I've literally been 3 places this week
that's crazy.
that didn't take cash at all. They're
Oh,
like card only, card only, card only. We're not going back to cash, card only. That's what they said. And I mean, and they don't look like they're going back. So, I mean, everything is going to that. I mean, the digital transactive through the phone, through the wires
I
type
know, dude.
space.
But I
And
think
and it's hard to navigate, you know what I mean? Because once again, it kind of depends on who's in what office where. You know, that's what a lot of that kind of stuff depends on. But it looks like the way it's going is that these folks want to see everything out there. You know, they want to see every dollar we spend and every dollar we're bringing in, which is what, you know, and that's generally what it looks like it's going to. So be it. You know, it's all about adapting. People are going to have to adapt, and either they're going to adapt now with the NFTs, with crypto stuff, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all that kind of stuff, or they're going to keep thinking cash and debit card are the ways and get caught slipping and have to adjust when shit is high. When it's, I never like to use the phrase, or when it's too late, because if it's out there, it's not too late. You just are going to be way behind the curve if you don't adjust. You know what I mean? The meta stuff, you know, that's something to look into because it's happening. You know what I mean? I was on the Instagram, I think it was yesterday, and I saw that this dude, he's an artist named Post Malone.
mm-hmm.
And Post Malone has showed that he had bought 2 different NFTs for like $430-something thousand. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yo, and, you know, people are like, hey, you need to put your album cover up as an NFT. You need to do this as your own NFT and create something to see how it does. And, you know, so I'm just navigating that now is, you know, seeing how to possibly create my own, because it seems like people are interested. So fuck it, why not? You know what I mean? If that's where we're going, it's our duty to do the research. And that's kind of where I'm at with that kind of stuff right now, is researching a little bit more so I know what I'm really getting into. You know, with same thing when I first started getting into stocks, I didn't just jump in blindly. I talked to those around me that have been playing the game, talked to my financial advisor. Then I jumped in. Same thing was crypto came about. I didn't just jump in. I kind of watched it, did the research, asked some people, and then jumped into it. And so the same thing is going to happen here because it's inevitable. It's coming. It's not coming. It's here. But it's going to come even more.
I'm trying to read up as much as I can about these NFTs, and you know, I feel like there's a generation that are similar to like monkeys and we live in trees, and then there's our kids that are fish and they live in the sea, and I think the water level's rising and our kids are just going to swim circles around us and end up just like my kids swim through this world. They already understand this Roblox and making money and mining currency and stuff, and I'm just going to buy them some high-powered computers and get out of the way, you know?
Right.
But I think the floodwaters are rising, and I think we're about to get covered up with a bunch of little kids that move through this world a lot better than we do.
I mean, and I mean, for real though, man, it's like my daughter, you know what I mean? There was one day when my daughter realized money didn't grow on trees and she didn't have all the shit that she had from me going outside and picking leaves, you know what I mean? She realized it was the work, but she understood the concept of work. So now she doesn't just ask for money. She's like, you know, she'll go clean something. She'll go, you know, she does work herself one way or another around the house or whatever it may be to earn money. So she does some stuff and she's like, hey, you know, can we go to the store? When we're at the store, she's like, can I get this? And we're like, yeah, because you did a good job of actually doing this without us even asking. You know, so she's going above it. Granted, I would get the girl a toy regardless. I'm a fucking girl dad, so I'm a goddamn sucker at the end of the day. Let's be real. You know what I mean?
That's so hard. That is so hard.
But her going over and above without us having to ask says a lot. You know what I mean? Because I've embedded in her, that's what leaders do. Leaders do the work without being asked to do the work. You know what I mean? And even if they're at the top of the board, they still do the work with everybody that may be under them to help bring them up there to create more leaders, which is why every single morning she leaves our house, I'm like, hey, what are you going to do today? She's like, lead with excellence. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how are you going to do that? She's like, by doing the work and helping others. I'm like, that's exactly it. That's the only way I want you to view it right now. By doing the work and helping others be better. And she's won 2 or 3 leadership awards already in her classroom for the year for being a great classmate and inspiring others that are struggling to know they could do it. Like her teacher sends my wife and myself, because my wife works at the same school that my daughter goes to, and her teacher will send us text messages on these things that she's saying. And it's not that I told her to say these specific things, but she's heard these specific things through the core values that we hold in our household, where I'm talking about inspiring others and doing the work. And hey, this is why we do this. Hey, this is why we do that. Hey, I'm putting the work in to help. And she's like, but you don't normally do that. I'm like, I know. I just want to go over and above to help this friend because I know they can use the help right now. She's like, oh, okay. And she's understanding those concepts of being being resourceful to others and just trying to find solutions for everybody and help everybody win.
Dude, that's how you become valuable, though.
Right.
You become valuable by being valuable to the people around you. And
correct.
The more you give, the more you receive. Make this easy for my production team, Dontae. Tell me again the 2 things you say to your daughter every morning when you tell her goodbye.
I say, what are you going to do? She says, lead with excellence. And then I ask her how she's going to do it. And she says, by doing the work and helping others.
All right. That, production guys, that needs to be its own clip in the show notes. I love that. That's really...
And that's for everybody. That ain't even just for kids.
Yeah.
That's for, with adults, we might, phrase it a little bit differently, but layman's terms, everybody understands that. How do you be a leader? By doing the work first and helping others get there as well.
I walk my son Charlie into school every morning and I fist bump him. I tell him to go crush it. And then I got to pay Drewby a royalty for telling him that.
Right. So. Yeah. Crush your day, son.
Nah, I said, go crush it. I fist bump him. But we got a little routine. But I may start to inject some of that leadership stuff in there, dude. That's some sage advice.
Man, I was thoroughly surprised and happily surprised to my core how well she accepted that. With not understanding it at first, because at first it was like, okay, Dad, I'm going to lead with excellence. Lead with excellence. Hey, you gonna lead with excellence, right? Yes, lead with it. Then so it went from me being like, hey, lead with excellence to me being like, hey, what are you gonna do? And then she tells me.
And
then it went from that to be like, okay, you're leading with excellence, right? Yes. How are you going to do that? So it was a progression from me putting in her to her throwing it back at me to me telling her how it's done to her telling me how it's done. That way she really understands the concept and is showing in her classroom, which is the most beautiful thing ever, especially for a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? That's what makes, she's turning 6 here in a month. So I guess I'll give her due diligence for pretty much a 6-year-old. But even still, for her to understand that concept and want it, because that's what drives her. What drives her is helping others. And that's the most beautiful thing ever. Because it's going to help her even greater in the long run. Because so many people are super selfish in this world. When the kids can learn that helping others and sharing and being like, hey, you can do this. Don't say that you can't do this math problem. Don't say that you're not going to do this, but you can. And this is how you're going to do it because this is how I did it. And I think it will help you doing it this way. And then them doing it and them believing themselves. Now we got 2 leaders. And now both of them are doing it to 2 other people. Now we have 4. You know what I mean? Now all 4 of them are doing it. Now we have 8. And we just keep duplicating these leaders when it's done right. But these kids have to have parents around them that are putting these thoughts in them. If kids don't have parents around them that know how to do this kind of stuff because they haven't understood it themselves, then it's not going to happen. But if we have one kid in every classroom to at least start the cycle for their other classmates, them kids one day won't need their parents to do that. I didn't need my parents to do it because it wasn't that case. It was never lead, you know what I mean? It was like, hey, make A's and B's and don't come home with anything less, period. That's about the most leadership stuff I got talked to about.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so leadership was something that I had to learn. Then once we learned it as adults, if we didn't have it growing up, we put it in our kids from the start. Then our kids put it in other kids and so on and so forth. That's how it begins to where now we go this rabbit hole where everybody's trying to just breed leaders. Dude, you start with one and then the web begins.
I love it. So I'm assuming you get as much joy from being a father as I do. How do you go about making sure you get a healthy, balanced relationship between your business and your daughter?
More than anything special with it, my wrestling travels, I'm gone a lot of weekends. Like, I mean, 2, 3 days at a time,
Hmm.
I'll be gone. So my biggest thing is being present when I'm present. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not if I'm home, my women get it until they go to bed. You know what I mean? If I want to do more work, cool, which I usually will, but it's not till after both my daughters are down and my wife is laid down, you know what I mean? Or at least in her resting state of
Right.
watching
Right.
Law and Order SVU or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. Because I was real bad. It took navigating, especially when I first started my business, because it was like always work, 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 work. Got to get clients because I got to get money. Got to get clients
Yeah.
because I got to get
Yeah.
money. So I was always, and now businesses are from our devices, be it computers, be it tablets, or be it our phones. So it's easy to always be on there, not on Instagram scrolling, but literally, okay, let me answer this email. Let me send this text message. Let me check back in with this person. Then we're 2 hours into it and realize we've barely talked to our family a couple times since being home, when
Yeah.
it's the only little couple hours, 2 or 3 hours out of the night that they even get us before kids got to be in bed. Because it ain't like our young kids are staying up till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Mine don't, you
No.
know what I
No.
mean? Because they got school the next day. So we're already short on time. And so it's making sure I'm present when I am present. And then also making sure that they understand that everything I'm doing right now for when I'm not present, actually at home,
Hmm.
is for the future. They may not see it now, but these are all seesawing what we're doing now for 2 and 3 years. We're not even going to have to even think about or worry about these days anymore. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be free. We're going to be a free man, free woman, free kids, free husband, free wife, and get to enjoy these fruits in which we're planting the seeds to right now. Because before it was like I'm planting the fruit now and I need it to grow now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was coming to understand that that's not how it works. You lay the seeds. You got to dig the soil,
Yeah.
right? You got to lay
Yeah.
that groundwork, and then the seeds are laid. And then we got to water it, and then we got to resoil possibly if the soil's not right or the temperature is not right, which is us kind of just pivoting another direction if something's not working. And then it just takes time for, we see that first root come through, and then we see they get bigger and bigger and bigger to grow into this tree. And then it's like, okay, where's our apples at? And
Hmm.
then we keep sowing and keep sowing and keep watering and putting in the work for this tree to start growing apples. And then we see the first one. Then we see the second one. Then we see the third one. But it's years on end that
Yeah.
of the work it takes for that tree to grow into a tree, let alone grow into a tree that's growing a whole bunch of apples on it. But when we understand that the work we're doing now to do all this groundwork for that tree to go to be able to grow apples is going to pay off here in 2 or 3 years, it's like, cool. I'll wait for them ripe ass apples to get there because I know it's going to be the best fruit, the best apple that I've ever had before. So we can do the work right now to be able to benefit there in 2 or 3 years.
Dude, what a wonderful analogy. I love hearing explained like that. You got to you got to prepare the soil, plant the seed, nurture the tree, allow the tree
Yeah.
to mature, and then harvest the fruit. That was really, really well done analogy, man. Because patience is very difficult. They say it takes about 7 years to actually become an overnight success.
Correct.
Is that about how long it's taken you? Right at
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
100%. Was funny. Like I've been before I went into business for myself, I was a trainer for about 4 years before I started Primetime Fitness,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until like last year. Like last year was my most successful year as a trainer ever up until this year. This
Hmm.
year's been my most successful year,
Yeah.
and now we're really starting to see that
This year you've
groundwork. And
exploded.
what's funny, like the more money that I start making and the more people I'm helping, the more money I put out to learn more stuff,
Hmm.
to invest in knowledge and masterminds and courses, just to keep heating this knowledge. You know what I mean? But it's all paying for itself after a year. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? A year in, it's like, oh, I made that back. So now let's go to the next thing. Oh, I made that back. But wrestling's the same way. I'm at year 7.5, and I'm just now starting to get my big promotion looks from working for AEW out in Florida or wherever travel to a few times and start being on major TV and face these major wrestlers. It's just steadily, once again, just as cliche as it may be to some people that may listen, steadily doing the work, not giving up, waking up, fighting, realizing that every time I level up, that there's gonna be shit that tries to knock me back down, and not getting knocked down because I take my punches and I fucking punch back. You know what I mean? And I'll get hit hard sometimes, and I won't ever talk about it because I'm like, I can take this, put it here again, give me some more. You know what I mean? I was like, I dare you to give me some more, because I know how much harder I'm going to hit back to get through whatever it is. Because the last thing I'm about to do is go back to where I was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. My biggest thing is I don't backtrack. I keep going forward, and that's how I do it.
Dude, I love it. I love it. So who would you say, out of all the people that you've met on this journey, especially over the last couple of years, who would you say your strongest professional mentor had been, and what kind of role did they have in your development?
Ooh.
Or
spiritually,
maybe there's more than one.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to name different aspects because some of them correlate into the next. So it started spiritually for me getting around the right people. And I've been at the same church since I got saved. And so out of that kind of aspect, it's been one, Pastor Keith, who's the head pastor at our church, who you've probably heard speak before, because he's done a few different things with Ryan, and you know, he was at MDM and stuff like that before, you know what I mean? And or one of the past live events that might have been. Yeah. But he came and spoke at one of Ryan's events. And within that circle of me getting saved there, meeting Eric Rona and him seeing something in me to where he was like, I want you at my gym, because I think my gym can benefit from your personality and who you are as a human being, and allowing me to sublease from him. And he's taught me a lot of business stuff. And he's an open book when I'm like, hey, how much do you pay rent? How much is electricity? How much is this? Like, how'd you go about setting this up? He's an open book with me, which a lot of people won't give you those kind of numbers all the time. But he knows I'm not going to interfere with his business because we're so separate. So he's not afraid to give that to me, and hasn't allowed me my first opportunity to go on business for myself by giving me a deal to sublease from him. And then being here, Mark Zalmanoff was the one that put the elbow grease into helping me really formulate my business. He's like, okay, what do you want to call it? Okay, cool. Now, if you do it, how many hours do you want to work? Set that up. Okay, with that, you need to make your prices correlate to those hours that you want to work to minimally make whatever it is you want to make, and really realizing that aspect of it. And then, like I say, through there, it's just meeting Ryan and Apex in general, you know, because I feel like everybody damn near in Apex is kind of a mentor to everybody, because we all get shit from, because that's all a mentor is somebody that sows into your life one way or another that you feel like helps benefit you. And there's a lot of people as far as that goes, but I would say if I had to choose 3 or 4 just like main players that were a super direct into that, it would be Pastor Keith, because it was his church I got saved at by default. But through that, Eric Rona, Mark Zalmanoff, and then Ryan Stewman, because Ryan has Apex, which has allowed me to meet a lot of people that I now do life with on a regular basis and just help energy produce into. They energy produce into me. I sow seeds into them. They sow seeds into me. And so the cycle begins. We're one big family of choice.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, Dontae, we're almost up on time, pal. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Before we go, I want to know if you've read any good books recently.
Oh, yeah, man. One book I love is, so I read kind of an era of books. You know, I read all the business books that Apex members write and stuff. One of the last ones that I read was probably Mark Zalmanoff's that I had finished. His book, Make Good Choices.
I own that. Like, I have not read it yet. I've got a stack of books to get through, dude.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like we had what, 15, 20 people that wrote books this year, you know what I'm saying? Including myself. And like, I've only read mine partly back already, you know, I was like the actual physical copy of the book, you know what I mean? I read the final transcripts before we put it out and things like that. But as far as the actual book, I haven't even gotten all the way through mine.
Oh, damn.
You know what I mean? And so like Mark's is really good. You know, we just got Jonathan Laudermilk just got his. I've also been reading Candace Owens' book called Blackouts, which
Oh yeah.
is which is really good. Because I really like Candace Owens. I know, you know, a lot of Black people don't like her because she's a conservative, and the majority of the African American population historically is not conservative, Republican, or anything of the sort. I think a lot are going to be coming around a lot more, maybe. But a lot of people have difficulty just opening up to that mindset to hear something different from what they've been taught from generation on generation.
Yeah.
And I think people need to open up their mind just to listen to people. They don't have to agree. They don't have to turn Democratic to Republican or Republican to Democratic, liberal to conservative, conservative, liberal. I could care less about what people's aspects of that is. I have my own views on certain stuff, and that's what I go off of based off of my life. But I do think everybody owes it to themselves to listen to the opposite side to see why. And that's what not enough people do, is listen to the other people, read stuff from other people that they know they're not probably going to agree with, to see where they're coming from. And I think it's big because everybody is so different from one another. The only thing you could have, the only way you could have the ultimate human experience of understanding is to try to understand somebody that you may not initially understand where they're coming from. You have to allow yourself to take your own personal aspect out of it, to be like, I'm going to take my opinions out of it, talk and explain, and then ask questions, however the fuck you want to ask them, and then being vulnerable enough and open enough to give you life experiences. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe a lot of people feel the way they feel for a certain reason. You know, I don't feel people just feel the way they feel because they just feel that way. People have been through a lot of shit in life. So there's a lot of stuff that they might have been through why they might say this or that about one thing or another. Granted, can they change that mindset? You know, I'll give you a quick example. Sorry, because I know I could get going on a lot of stuff.
You're
But
good,
quick
man. You're
example,
good.
like I have a lot of friends that are like, hey, you know, I just hate all cops, right? That thing, because of a lot of stuff that has happened that they put in the media over the last, you know, 3, 4 years, 5 years since Trayvon Martin type stuff, about all these Black people that were killed in the streets and stuff like that. So people come out and just say, I hate all is the key that I'm hearing, cops. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. You know what I mean? I can understand that there's bad of everything out there. There's also good of everything out there. And you can't put everybody in the box. Here at the gym, we have, you know, 5 or 6 different cops that I love to death. You know what I mean? We do life together outside of here. But also, I've been pulled over in small little podunk towns for my tail light, quote unquote, being out when it really wasn't out, had all my shit searched. They didn't ask me anything other than what my criminal history is like, which I have done, and then let me be on my merry way after they couldn't find anything. Going to say, you know, I've been stereotyped and pulled over before. I didn't leave it saying all cops are bad. I left it being like, man, fuck that guy first and foremost for being that kind of human being to want to do that to another human being for no actual reason. You know what I mean? But and it is that kind of understanding where if we do find these people that are like, oh, I hate all, and it's like, why? Why do you hate? Then they give you these experiences like, okay, I can understand it in those experiences now. But then on the opposite side, it's like, please do try to understand that although you've had these experiences with the 2, 3, 4, 5 that you may have had, not all are like that, because I've had these experiences in the same instance where they were all good, but I've also had the bad. So we can't put all of them into the same box. But the only way that we could get to understanding either side of any of these kind of situations like that, or the million of situations that we can have of misunderstanding in the world, is if we fucking communicate and are vulnerable enough to be honest within that communication. Because I think that's the key too, is honesty and vulnerableness within that communication, and throwing pride out the window and literally letting us be beside ourselves in what we want to say to understand this person and where they're coming from.
Man, every time you open your mouth, it's like another sage piece of wisdom falls out, dude. I love it. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, my friend. Before we get out of here, one more thing. If you could let everybody listening know where to find you on social media, that would be just great, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest place is DontaeSmiley.com. DontaeSmiley.com. It has everything, wrestling stuff, podcast stuff, from my podcast to every podcast that I've been on. I put on my podcast page on my website as well. That way it's easily to find to help those that have allowed me to be on their podcast. You can find all my music stuff on there.
Dude,
You
I'm
can
gonna
hit
go
me
check
up
that
about
out.
training on everything.
Is your music on
what I mean?
Spotify too?
I'm on Spotify. I'm on everything. Do everything.
We're gonna find
I
something.
don't miss any opportunity to be out there. Just like I don't miss opportunity to make any money that I can. So I have all the money apps as well. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to miss out on making $1. So I got it all. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
And so on and so forth. So yeah. So DontaeSmiley.com. You'll find everything. Social medias are at Primetime Living. PRIMELIVING or PRIMETIMELIVEING. There you
We'll
go.
put the link in the notes.
You were with me.
This is great. This is great. All right, my man. Guys, as always, if you have enjoyed the show, if you've gotten anything out of it, do me a favor, run over to Dontae's social media. The links are in the show notes. Give him a like, give him a follow, and then do us all a favor and share out the show. Put it on your social media.
Please, yeah.
Tag me at Small Business Surgeon. Tag Dontae at Primetime Fitness. And dude, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank
on.
you.
And all you guys, thank you so much for listening. You have a wonderful week, and I will see you on this week's Friday Fire. Take care.